In this week's video, we're going to do Keum Boo application. This is an ancient Korean technique in which you fuse gold to sterling silver. And I wanted to show you this because it's one of my favorite techniques. I like to use it in my jewelry. And by the way, the reason why I'm more pink than usual is because I went kayaking with my husband this week. So I took a day off from the studio and had a little bit of fun, and now I'm back working. So let's go ahead and get to the bench. The first thing you want to do when you're ready to apply your Keum Boo is to deplete the silver first. And what that means is to bring the fine silver up to the surface. And as you can see here, it's nice and shiny. And I've done a little bit of reticulation on this piece before I started. So I'm going to go ahead and deplete the silver again. I've gone through 6 rounds. This will be the 7th round. I recommend doing anywhere from 7 to 10. And between each one, you want to burnish it, and I'll show you what that process is like as well. So let's go ahead and deplete this silver. Then we'll stick it in the pickle and let it pickle before we do the burnishing. You want to heat it until you get to a matte finish. Basically, it's almost to the point where you're annealing it. And that matte finish is the fine silver coming up to the surface. I do both sides on my pieces. And that's it. So now I'm going to quench it and pickle it, and then we'll go to the sink and do the burnishing. So what I'm going to do to burnish it is place a little bit of soap and dampen it down. And then I'm going to use a brass brush to brush it until all of that fine silver has actually turned from the matte color to a shiny finish. So I'm going to run the water a little bit and do this, and then we'll talk about the process. So now you can see I've got a nice shiny surface, and I'm going to go ahead and do the depletion several more times, and then we'll come back to the part where we put the gold on it. So for this part, the application of the gold, you're going to need a hot plate and a brass brush, some tweezers, an agate or steel burnisher, and then of course you're going to need your Keum Boo Gold. Now it comes in a sheet like this, and you want to make sure that you order the specific Keum Boo Gold and not just a gold foil. Gold foil is typically too thin for the Keum Boo application. It won't stand out as nearly as much as with the gold foil. So make sure you buy the Keum Boo Gold foil. I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece off here that I'm going to fuse to my silver, and then we'll get the process started. And while I'm cutting my silver, or my gold, I'm going to heat up my silver. I want to bring that up to a temperature of roughly 600 to 800 degrees because that's the fusing temperature for the gold. So let's turn this on. Move this stuff out of the way. I'm going to cut myself a piece of this gold foil. Now you can cut it or you can tear it. It's strictly up to you. However you want to do it is fine. I like to cut pieces so that some of it is a little organic in feel and then also has straight lines, a little geometric. I'm going to go ahead and place it on my silver while the silver and gold are heating up. And I will use my brass brush. Since I reticulated my piece, I'm going to use my brass brush to push it down into the grooves. Now it's not sticking very well, so I better wait for it to heat up just a little bit more. Have your burnisher ready and your brass brush ready. And you can see here my gold is not sticking very well, and that's because it's not up to temperature just yet. And remember, you want to bring it up to between 600 and 800 degrees before you try to burnish it, otherwise it won't fuse. You can test the temperature by touching it with your burnisher. If it's getting up to temperature, you'll see that the gold will start to stick, and mine is not sticking just yet, so that means it's not up to temperature. So I'm going to let it sit for a little bit longer. This is much easier to do on a flat piece of silver, but since I reticulated this piece first, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. It's starting to stick now, so that means I'm getting closer to the temperature. You can see it's still a little bit loose here at the bottom because it's not getting enough temperature. And be careful not to burn yourself on the hot plate like I did earlier. Okay, it's starting to stick now. I can start burnishing this. Do it very gently. You don't want to tear the gold foil. And take your time with it. You don't have to use the brass brush when you're doing on a piece of flat silver. I prefer to cut my metal after I put the Keum Boo on, but you can do it either way. You can cut your piece and add your Keum Boo, or you can wait until you're done putting the Keum Boo onto the gold or onto the silver before you actually cut it out. So I think this is done. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. I'm going to let this cool on its own. I'm not going to quench it. I'm just going to let it cool on its own, and then we'll take it to the sink and brush it again and see how much of the gold is actually stuck to the silver. Sometimes it works and everything's stuck, and sometimes it just didn't get hot enough. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over to my cold plate. Okay, so now we have the gold application completed. You can see it's still at a matte finish from the last time we did the depletion. And now I'm going to take my brass brush with a little bit of soap and water, and I'm going to burnish it all down again just to see where and how, or if, all of my gold has adhered to the silver. So you can see the gold is adhered to my silver. It's not perfect, but because of the hills and valleys, it's a little bit more difficult to get the gold to adhere. So I would recommend, if you're starting this new, to start with a flat piece of silver, not a reticulated piece of silver, because it's a little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more rustic, I think. That's the way I like my work, but you may want to practice, like I said, with a piece of straight silver. So I'm going to put this in my patina, and then we'll take a look and see how there is some contrast. So it's out of the patina, and as you can see, there's a pretty deep gold contrast, which is really interesting. There's some peaks and valleys that got the gold, and then areas that didn't. So I'm really happy with this piece. I'm gonna cut it out and make something with it, probably a pendant. So that's what it looks like once it's been patinaed. So in this week's video, we did Keum Boo. This is an ancient Korean technique of fusing gold to silver. It's one of those techniques that's a lot of fun to do once you get the hang of it, and I can guarantee you it'll bring a lot of contrast to your pieces when you use a patina on them. So let's go over the 3 or 4 steps that we need to do Keum Boo. First, you want to deplete the silver. Bring all the fine silver to the surface. Then, once you've pickled the piece, you want to take it to your sink and brass brush it and make it shiny once more. And you're going to do this in 7 to 10 rounds so that you've got enough fine silver at the surface for the gold to fuse to. Next, you're going to take your pieces and put them on a hot plate and heat them up to anywhere between 600 and 800 degrees. That's the fusing temperature. And you want to make sure that the silver and the gold are brought up to the same temperature in order to have the fuse happen. The last thing you want to do is take your piece back to the sink, burnish it again with a brass brush, and see how much, if some or all, of your gold stuck to the silver. If not all of it stuck to the silver, that just means you didn't have enough temperature. So you might want to take them back to your hot plate again and try it another time until you can get it to fuse. Now you can add gold on top of gold when it comes to doing this process, so don't feel like you have to start all over with a new piece of silver. So hopefully this video was helpful for you, and if so, give me a like. If you have questions or comments about the process, please leave them down below the video. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next week. Bye.